أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي. قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء، فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أمه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليكم. رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، ها هو مع والديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا أخي ووصيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء، ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: والسلام عليك يا أبتاه. يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء، أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم، وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا ربي، ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع في من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وعجل فرجه.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we'll be starting our session. It's the mapping, mind mapping, sorry. The mind mapping session. I forgot myself there. There's so many new sessions coming along, I think I'm forgetting. Inshallah, can I request the ladies to come into the gents' namaz hall? So inshallah, Sheikh can start his session off. So inshallah, he'll give a 10-minute introduction, and then we'll continue with the session, inshallah. So
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
for the love of our ninth Imam, Muhammad al-Jawad al-Taqi, please recite a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, congratulations on the birth anniversary of our ninth Imam, Muhammad al-Jawad, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Alhamdulillah, yesterday's session seems to have brought up a lot of, or we've received a lot of positive feedback based on yesterday's session. So following its success, we wanted to be able to continue with innovating the format of the majlis, but actually become a little bit more deliberate and a little bit more specific in the formats that we can use to be able to learn about our Imam alayhi salam. So yesterday's method was known as KWL. So what does the K stand for? What you know about the Imam. W stood for what you would like to learn about the Imam, and then L stood for what you have learned about the Imam alayhi salam. Tonight, inshallah, we will use the technique which is known as mind mapping. Mind mapping. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has constructed the human brain is that we learn through compartmentalizing things, and the more we remember something and then recall that thing that we have memorized, the stronger that memory becomes. Which means the easier it is for us to be able to recall that memory, even if it be something many, many years later. So in regards to the compartmentalization, for example, one of the things that the mind is good at is being able to divide people into categories, because those categories allows us to be able to remember people easier. Or for example, one of the things that we do when we make a memory in our mind and then recall it, and it becomes easier for us to be able to recall it the more times we have recalled it. For example, it might be something like driving. If you had to relearn the practice of driving every time you got back into the car, it would be impossible for us to be able to live. But once you have learned it, we now learn how to drive. And it becomes what we call second nature. So the more we remember something, the more instilled in our brain it becomes. So our idea of mind mapping is for us to create certain compartments of learning, and then learn how to be able to recall things so that it becomes more and more infused with our memory, becomes easier for us to be able to remember these things, even if it becomes months or years later. So mind mapping is very simple. Imagine we put the name of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam here in the middle of the sheet, and then we have sort of 4 arms, right, that come out from that name. The first arm, we will focus on all things that you know of to do with his birth. And every time one of you wants to mention something about his birth, it will go in this corner. We might end up with 3 bullet points, we might have 5 bullet points regarding his birth. And everything to do with his birth will go in one compartment. Similar, something to do with his death. You might tell us where he died, what his year was, what happened to him, and so on. All of that towards his death will go in one corner. A third will be about his ahadith. If you know any of his hadith or his sayings, we can put it in another compartment. And then the last part of the mind map is for us to speak about his legacy. His overall legacy that we take away as a kind of overriding appreciation of what the Imam has left for you and I. So anything that comes under his legacy will go in that fourth corner. The idea behind this is that when we compartmentalize, it becomes easier for us to be able to remember things. So hopefully by the end of the discussion, when you walk away, you will say there's 4 things about the Imam's life I can think of. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then under each and every one of these 4 sections, you might have remembered 2 bullet points or 3 bullet points. And at the end of the majlis, the idea is for us to be able to see how much we can recall in each of these 4 sections. And the more you can recall something, the more you memorize it and recall it, memorize it and recall it, the more you will find it within your mind. It is stuck and stationed within your mind in a more permanent way. And then inshallah we can leave tonight's session with some more knowledge of our 9th Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Are there any questions on our program? Any questions? Okay. So I'm going to invite Sumaya up again to help write the mind map. So we're going to have 4 sections: birth, death, ahadith, and legacy. And similar to last night, we'll go around one person. We all say one thing that we know, and if we need more time, we can have more time to mention the things that we know. And then inshallah we will try to speak about some of these topics, and then we will try to focus some more time on what we've learned than what we did yesterday. Because time ran short yesterday, so we will focus more on our learning and what we're taking away from our learning, inshallah. So we're just drawing the mind map, and this is a good way of learning because it compartmentalizes our learning, which is easier for the brain to be able to focus on. Death and legacy, yeah. Okay. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, birth, his ahadith, his legacy, and his death. So in these areas, we will write down what we know about him, inshallah. Okay? So we can start with, shall I use this one or should we? Yeah. So, same as yesterday, inshallah. If you're happy, we'll start here. Yeah? We can ask one thing that we know about Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. One thing. And then we can start. Should we start with Adnan again? We go around this way against the walls. Is that alright? Yeah? Okay. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay. One thing that you'd like to mention about Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. Anything at all. Can I come back to you? Yeah? Okay. Ahsant. Yeah, I think we can put it under birth or legacy. Either. Okay. Became Imam at the age of 9 years old, or maybe 8 years old. He was born on the 10th of Rajab. Carry on in the corner, going round. He died on the 29th of Dhul Hijjah. Dhul Qa'dah or Dhul Hijjah? Dhul Qa'dah. Thank you. Ahsant. His title was At-Taqi and Al-Jawad. What does At-Taqi and Al-Jawad mean? Any ideas? What does al-Jawad mean? The generous, well done. And what does at-Taqi mean? Pious. Ahsant, well done. You're going to remember that for the end? Inshallah? Brilliant. He was born in the city of Medina. So that goes under birth.
He was a newcomer in the sense that his father was 45 around when he was born.
His father was around 45 by the time Imam was born. Lovely. So I think that goes on the legacy, right? So he begins the preparing the ground for the 12th Imam.
He was buried next to his grandfather in Kadhim.
Lovely. So death, he was buried next to his grandfather in Kadhim. Shri sister in the green scarf. Can you say that again? Ahsant. He was the son of our 8th Imam. Yeah. Ahsant.
His wife's name was Fadl.
His wife's name was Fadl. So I think in legacy. Or maybe even death, you never know. Right? Considering what happened to Imam alayhi salam. My young sister there? He was poisoned by Al-Mu'tasim Al-Abbasi. Ahsad, thank you very much.
Rashid knew that the 12th Imam was going to come from the Imam's lineage. So he wanted, that's why he got his daughter, married to the Imam, hoping that she would give birth to the future Imam.
Ahsad.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and that made Fazl very jealous, and eventually that led to Imam's martyrdom.
So Ma'mun's in legacy, or maybe in death, you never know. Which one?
It goes with both.
It goes with both, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So Ma'mun plotted for the 12th Imam to be born from Fadl as a means of subverting Imamate. It's very interesting because even Fir'aun tries to subvert a birth of a boy into Banu Israel, Musa alayhi salam, by killing every other year the newborn males. Ahsant. I don't know if Auntie wants to mention something. Ma'mun. And Auntie Ma, would you like to mention something about Imam? Anything? Ahsant. So if any of the sisters want to go again, I know my young friend at the front said that she was going to say something. Say again? He's the 9th Imam. Ahsant. Beautiful. Yep, legacy. Thank you very much. So shall we continue round? One thing. Anything at all. All been said. Okay. Ahsant. Not sure?
He was buried beside his grandfather.
Lovely, thank you. We've had that. Have you got anything else as well?
He was only 9 years old when his father died.
He was only 9 years old when his father died. We've got that. Anything else? One more for us.
His family had a special type of knowledge which was not known to anyone.
Ahsan, special level of knowledge not known to others. Legacy, yeah.
Yeah, he worked more for the Ijtihad, as he knows the next two Imams spent more time in the prison. So he academically he worked a lot in very short span of time.
So I think that goes on the legacy. So knowing that the next two Imams were to spend much time under arrest, the Imam kind of did a lot of teaching and ijtihad and debates. I think that's very important as part of his legacy. Now that's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, if you guys take a step back, there's been one area that's not been mentioned at all. What's the area that's not been raised once? Ahsant. He dies at the age of 25. The Imam is actually the youngest Imam of all of the Imams to take Imamate until the 12th Imam, and then die as well as the youngest Imam of all of the Imams. Thank you. So what was the area that seems not to have been written on at all? Ahadith. That's very interesting.
There's 2 points. I don't know how true they are, but I'll say it.
Yes, please.
Is it the Husay Jawad, the ring that we normally wear?
Yes,
It's from this particular Imam.
it is.
And it was a time when I think, when Rashida was saying that Mamun was so, when he found out that he had another wife and he had a child, he was so infuriated that he actually went and tried to kill him.
Yes.
And he thought, he was so in a drunken state, he thought that he actually killed the Imam.
Yeah.
And then the following day he saw the Imam. He goes, I thought I killed you, what happened? And he sort of said, this is from my grandmother,
Yes.
maybe Fatima.
Which keeps me protected.
Protects, that's one. And the other,
So do you want to put Hirz Jawad as a legacy? Thank you.
and the other one was that Meher, Fadl, apart from the monetary aspect, he gave 10 du'as or a certain amount of du'as, which he'll say that if you recite this, it will grant you any of your.
Ahsan. So as part of the mahar he gave 10 du'as to Fadl. Yeah. Lovely. So that could potentially go in hadith. Those, whatever those 10 ad'iyah were, or those 10 du'as were. So, before we move on, Assalamu alaikum. You have to join us now. So, do you know what we're doing? Okay. So, in brief, we are mind mapping what we know about the 9th Imam alayhi salam al-Jawad. So, we've divided the mind mapping into 4 areas. What we know about his birth, what we know about his ahadith, what we know about his death, what we know about his legacy. So you have to mention one thing about the Imam in each and every one of these 4. That's what we're doing, right? Right? Yeah, okay. So one thing about his birth. Anything.
Was he born in Medina?
Excellent. He was born in Medina. That's been mentioned, so that's brilliant. Can you see it? You can see it.
I can't see the.
Okay, good. Take your glasses off. Okay, so one thing about his birth, Imam was born in Medina. Fantastic. And tell us something about his ahadith. Give me one hadith from 9th Imam. Anything at all.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, no problem. Give me one thing about his death. Anything about his death.
He was poisoned.
He was poisoned. Have we mentioned that? Yes, poisoned by Al-Mu'tasim. Excellent, thank you. And one thing about his legacy. Anything at all.
Take time.
Sorry? Take my time, yeah.
We're here all night.
I don't doubt that.
Want to phone a friend?
I might be wrong,
No?
but
Don't start with that.
I don't know if the 9th Imam or not.
Okay.
But for some reason it comes to my mind.
Sure.
That, wasn't he involved in the political sort of sphere at the time, as like the advisor to the Caliph, or is that have I got the wrong Imam?
Not advisor, that was the 8th Imam, kind of as heir apparent.
Yeah.
But the 9th Imam was the son-in-law.
Okay, son-in-law. Okay.
Son-in-law of the Caliph. So I don't know if that's been mentioned specifically, but
Daughter of the Caliph?
so he married the daughter Fadl, or daughter of the Caliph Fadl. So yeah, very good. He was the son-in-law of the Caliph of the time. Say again? He died at the age of 25. Ahsant. So we've got that one written. Thank you.
It's not line they convinced Yahya ibn Akram, the chief judge of the Qasiyas, to humiliate Jawada, asking him questions that he would not be able to answer.
So he had a debate with Yahya ibn Aktham in the Abbasid court. The idea was to try to humiliate a 9-year-old Imam, and Yahya ibn Aktham, the most knowledgeable scholar of his time, was defeated by the 9th Imam. I think that goes in legacy. Brilliant. Okay, so let's work a little bit on some of the things that we don't know for a minute. Right? Let's pick some ahadith and we will try to tease it out of everyone so that maybe at least one or two ahadith we can get out here, and then inshallah we can try to see how we can go on with the learning. Yes?
I've got a hadith.
Oh, excellent. We have a hadith here for the Imam.
Know that piety is honor, knowledge is a treasure, and silence is a light.
Brilliant. Do you want to say it slowly and loudly so we can write it down?
Know that piety is honor,
Know that piety is honor.
knowledge is a treasure,
Knowledge is a treasure.
and silence is a light.
And silence is a light. Ahsant. Young sister, how old are you? Wonderful, 10 years old. MashaAllah. Know that piety is an honor. Why should it be an honor? Why should piety be an honor for you? Not everybody has piety. So for you, if you have it, it's an honor for you. Ahsan, very nice. And knowledge is a treasure. Why should knowledge be a treasure? Treasure is considered to be the most, not desired thing, but it's something that valuable thing. That's a good word. So if you read it the other way around, people want treasure because it's so valuable, it's so rare. Knowledge is a treasure and silence is a light. Why should it be a light? What does a light do? It shows you the way, guides you. Wonderful. Okay. Let's pick one or two hadith of our 9th Imam alayhi salam, and we'll try to fill the board with that as well so that we can finish our mind map for tonight. If I said the name Yahya ibn Aktham and the debate with Yahya ibn Aktham, does anyone bring to mind arguably the most famous incident of the 9th Imam's life in debating the leading scholar of the time, Yahya ibn Aktham? At this point, if I just mention that there was a debate, does anyone recall the hadith of the 9th Imam? Okay, so let me give one more hint and hopefully someone will remember it. The Caliph wanted to marry his daughter off to Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. His advisors were shocked and said, why would you marry your daughter to an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old boy? Al-Ma'mun responds by saying, don't say he is a boy, he is the most knowledgeable out of everyone. If you want, I will prove it. bring your very best scholar and let him publicly debate with Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. At this point, does anyone remember what the hadith is? What the most famous hadith of the life of the ninth Imam, arguably?
Did he say the ayat of the Quran is at Isa when he says Qala inni Abdullah and Nabiyyun?
This is a different one. Okay, brilliant. Hold on to that one, inshallah. I'll continue the hadith, and then if someone knows it, you stop me. Yeah? According to the narration, when the day was chosen, hundreds of people from the court, advisors, ministers, famous intellectuals, all gather in the court to watch this debate between the leading mujtahid of the time, Yahya ibn Aktham, and a 9-year-old boy, Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. When I say boy, you understand, I mean boy. Yahya ibn Aktham asks a question. Does anyone know at this point the question? Yes, it's something to do with ihram. What was it?
Hunting in the state of ihram.
Brilliant. What is the kafara for someone who hunts in the state of ihram? This is the question that Yahya ibn Aktham poses to Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. Now before we continue, because you're going to remind me what the hadith was from the Imam, why do you think Yahya ibn Aktham asks an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old young boy this particular question as opposed to any other question that he could potentially have asked? Think about it, you're in a debate and you have to win. You've got everyone watching you. If you lose to an 8-year-old, it's problems for you. Because everyone thinks they can beat the 8-year-old. So if you lose to the 8-year-old, big problems. So when you're trawling through the books of hadith and fiqh and aqa'id, what would make your decision in asking this particular question over this?
Hadn't been like researched before, or hadn't been.
That's a very good one. It could be in the field that it's something that's burgeoning knowledge. It's so new that even it was a mas'ala that was so problematic amongst the fuqaha of the time that you don't imagine this boy will be able to answer. That's a very good answer. That's one potential. Any other potentials?
Could correct me, Sheikh. I think in the Sharia, that's the most complicated part of the deen about there is halal, haram, and mustahab, and the most Sharia things, principles apply in this area.
Wonderful. So another potential is that this question could have been seen as the most complicated question to ask. So let me ask the most toughest question, which everyone wrangles with, that I know you won't be able to answer. Second potential.
Not many 8-year-olds go for Hajj.
That's the one. Hajj is wajib at what age? Once you become baligh. So if you've got something in your life that you've never experienced, what's the chances that you can answer that question? That something theoretically can only occur when you require to know it. Most people, when they come to elderly age or maybe a life-threatening disease or a life-threatening operation, they think, now I need to write a will. And immediately they go, what are the laws of irth, inheritance? Until then, you never needed to know it, for example. So immediately, Maulana is on the end of the blower, and you're asking him, Maulana, what do I write in my will? How much can I leave here? How much can I leave, right? Because you don't need to know it until then, as an example. Yahya ibn Aktham was asking this question on the assumption that this 8-year-old would not know a masala that is beyond his life experience. Who remembers the answer? Who remembers the answer from from Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam to Yahya ibn Aktham? Maybe someone online knows it.
There were so many variables.
Okay.
So Imam sort of asked him in which context are you. So he gave him a number of conditions.
What were the conditions that he gave him? Do you know? Okay, does anyone know how Yahya was responded back to? Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam said to him, tell me about the situation of the muhrim, the one who's in the state of ihram and hunts. Was this hunting in Umrah or in Hajj? Was it during the day or was it at night? Was this done inside the haram or outside the haram? Was this the first time he did this act or he had already done it before? Was he a free man or was he a slave acting on behalf of his master? Was the animal large or was the animal small? Because for every one of these answers, the mas'ala slightly changes. If it's your first act as a crime, it's different if it's your second or repeated offense. If you are a slave being forced to act on behalf of your master, it's different to whether you are a free person and did it by your own volition. If it's inside the protected boundary of the haram, it's different to if it was outside. And if it was for wajib hajj, it was different if it was for umrah. At this point, Yahya ibn Aktham was dumbfounded. He had not thought about the answer to this level of depth, with this level of complexity, to which he was unable to respond. And as an outcome, at that point, Ma'mun al-Rashid said, please inform us. And we actually have the specific kafara for each answer depending on what situation it came to. In that state, our ninth Imam was able to defeat Yahya ibn Aktham in this part. And then, what happened next? Imam asked a question to Yahya ibn Aktham and put Yahya on the spot, to which Yahya was not able to answer. And in this way, the ninth Imam alayhi salam defeated Yahya in his debate. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay. Should we do one last hadith? Should we do one last hadith? Anyone else have any hadith that they want to mention from Imam? I'm going to mention one, inshallah. Okay? This one's a very interesting one. If the ignorant remained silent, if the ignorant person remained silent, very famous hadith from Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. If the ignorant person remains silent, people would not differ in their opinions. If the ignorant person was to remain silent at what they don't know, people would not differ in their opinions. When someone who doesn't know speaks up and someone likes that answer, then people become divided. Whereas if the person who doesn't know just accepts that he doesn't know, then people would not become divided in their knowledge. Okay, so we have 3 hadith here that we've learnt from Imam. The first hadith, know that piety is an honor, that knowledge is a treasure, and that silence is a light. Number 1. Number 2, second hadith that we've learnt, Yahya ibn Aktham is debated by Imam al-Jawad, particularly around the mas'ala of kafara of someone who's in the state of ihram and he does
hunting. And then, third hadith from Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, if the ignorant remain silent at what they do not know, people would not differ in their knowledge on account of him. 3 hadith that come from the Imam. So here, this is mind mapping. And the idea is that when we study the Imam, or we study anything, we can divide his life into different sections. And you can divide it into as many as you want or as few as you want. Of course, the more sections you divide it into, the more you have to try to remember. But the idea from tonight, inshallah, is to introduce this way of learning the Imam's life. That what we can do is, we can divide the Imam's life into parts. And what I'd like from you, we're going to do a small majlis now on the legacy of the Imam. And the idea is that we take away maybe 1 or 2 things from each of the 4 sections that we didn't know. So you will have this here, we'll leave this up. And at the end of the majlis, we will ask everyone, what did you learn? And the idea is for you to take away maybe 1 thing that you didn't know from each of the 4 sections. And then inshallah, the more you recall that, the easier it will become to remain within the mind. Okay? And this is known as mind mapping.
Just correct me. Is a book written by this Imam, Al-Kitabul Mamnoon?
It has not reached us.
Okay.
It sadly was lost or has remained with the 12th Imam and remains in his. Those books from the Imams that were written were either given to the companions and they used them as ahadith, or they've been lost over a period of time, or they remain with the 12th Imam. We do not have the book with us, sadly. Otherwise it would have been a treasure of all treasures. Ahsan. So here inshallah, with your blessing, we'll speak for 10-15 minutes about the life of our 9th Imam, Al-Jawad, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi.
Eight, 89 and 90, Surah Al-Baqarah verses 89 and 90. And then chapter number 25, Surah Al-Furqan. Chapter number 25, Surah Al-Furqan. Verse number 4 to verse number 9. Verse number 4 to verse number 9. We're going to speak about the legacy of the 9th Imam. What I'd like for us to take away is I'm going to summarize the legacy of the 9th Imam into one kind of statement, one kind of passage, so that if someone was to ask you, just describe to me what the legacy of the 9th Imam is, then you and I can take away that one thing in one passage, one statement, inshallah. For the love of our 9th Imam, let us have a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم انظر كيف ضربوا لك الأمثال فظلوا فلا يستطيعون سبيلا آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How do we describe the legacy? What Imam alayhi salam left behind as the overriding message of the times in which he lived in? If you recall, a few nights ago, we spoke about the life of our fifth Imam, Muhammad al-Baqir, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. We stated that the title al-Baqir, the one who splits open knowledge, tells us about the legacy of the Imam, and that there was a need for a person to split open knowledge due to the challenges that existed at that time. The challenges at the time of the fifth Imam were essentially different to the challenges at the time of the ninth Imam. The fifth Imam, we stated, number one, there had been a prohibition on recording ahadith. The first two caliphs prohibited recording of ahadith. So many hadith were lost, many hadith were made up, fictitious ahadith, number one. Number two, Jews and Christians had converted to Islam, and they had brought with them their old faith, their old traditions, their old tafsir, and interpolated those with Islam. And they used to explain the Quran through their old ahadith that they had understood. And these were known as Israeliyat ahadith. This was a second major problem at the time of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. For example, these were some of the troubles at the time. You needed a man named al-Baqir to be able to respond to these things. At the time of the ninth Imam alayhi salam, certain challenges were remaining from the time of the seventh Imam to the ninth Imam's time, that were particular to the wider Muslim Ummah and specifically to the Shia community at that time. Let us mention those in brief. Maybe on another time we could expand on them more. Number one, from the time of the sixth Imam, the Shia had begun to split into different sects. As you know, from the sixth Imam's time, the Shia Ithna Ashariya, the Twelvers, also had split into the Ismailiyya Shia. So now there was one sect that had broken off from the A'imma alayhimus salam. At the time of the seventh Imam, another sect had come in. These were known as the Waqifiyya. Waqifiyya from the word waqaf. Waqaf means to stop. They stopped at the seventh Imam. Why? When the seventh Imam alayhi salam was in prison, he ordered some of his companions to collect the khums on his behalf. They wanted to steal the khums. So when Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam died, they said, Imam is not dead, he's still in the prisons. So they could continue to collect the khums. If Imam is still alive and they've been given ijazah to collect, they can say he's still alive, they can continue to collect. So they broke off, and there was a group of Shia that believed that the seventh Imam continued to live, and that these companions were the heir apparents to the Imam, the representatives of the Imam, and that there was no eighth Imam afterwards. The seventh Imam continued. This was a major group at the time called the Waqifiyya. At the time of the eighth Imam, Ar-Ridha alayhi salam, another group broke off. These were called the Khatabiyya. Khatabiyya, from a man by the name of Al-Khattab. He claimed that the 8th Imam was God incarnate, like Jesus Christ with the Christians, and that he, Abu al-Khattab, was actually the Imam on his behalf. Do you understand? Basically, he wanted the position of Imamate. He also wanted khums. He wanted notoriety. So what he did was elevate the station of the Imam to such a state that he was like God. He used to say that Imam is actually God incarnate, and I am the Imam. And that we are so close that we have private sittings. No one has knowledge like me because Imam has given me the knowledge, and actually I'm his representative on earth. A group of Shia broke off and believed that Abu al-Khattab was the Imam and that Imam al-Rida alayhi salam was God incarnate. According to one hadith from the latter Imams, maybe the 9th or the 10th, they stated that there was no difficulty upon the Shia worse than this man Abu al-Khattab. That's how difficult it was for the Shia, because so many people believed, and this was institutionalizing the problem of ghulu, excessive belief, raising the stations of Imams to higher than they are. And until today, you know that many Shia say excessive things about Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, or say things like, you don't need to pray your salah, you just need to do, azar of Imam. Where did these things start? It started at that time, from the time of Abu Khattab and others such like him. So there were 3 major problems at that time that the 9th Imam inherited amongst the Shia. The 4th was Imam al-Rida alayhi salam did not have a child until he was very, very elderly. And as a result, people did not think that the Imam was going to have a son. And then when Imam al-Rida alayhi salam had a son, this son was a very dark, maybe even black individual. And due to the racism within the community, people rejected the 9th Imam, thinking, how could this person, who is not looking like an Arab, but looking like an African, be considered to be an Imam Ma'soom? Even more than this, when his father died, Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam was 8 years old. And none could imagine the idea of a Ma'soom Imam being just at the tender age of maybe 8 or 9 years old. These were the number of problems at the time of our 9th Imam, Muhammad al-Jawad, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Breakaway group from the 6th Imam, breakaway group from the 7th Imam, breakaway group from the 8th Imam, and multiple reasons to reject the 9th Imam. Imam Ma'soom at the age of 8 or 9 has to be able to unite the Shia back towards him. If you're the 9th Imam, how do you do this? The 9th Imam has a specific legacy. And the 9th Imam's legacy was that he engaged directly with these groups, and he used to engage with them through dialogue and debate in public in order to hold them to account for their beliefs, such that when he would debate with them and defeat them, he could reunite the flock of the Shia under one banner. Brother Tariq actually mentioned one hadith earlier on, and I said we'll come back to it. Can you remind us, what was the hadith that you started to mention?
Regarding the fact that he was so young, and that was proven by the fact that Isa was only a baby when he became a prophet.
So because 2 of the prophets of Allah were either babies or children at the time of their prophethood, Isa alayhi salam and Prophet Yahya alayhi salam, in his debates, he was able to prove his imamate through his dialogue and through his debate. He did this with Yahya ibn Aktham. He did this directly with the Waqifiyya, those who stopped at the seventh Imam. He did this specifically with the Khatabiyya, those who considered Abu al-Khattab to be the Imam and Imam actually to be God. And he did this with those people who rejected him as being too young to be an Imam Ma'soom. They took the son of the seventh Imam, the brother of the eighth Imam, to be the Imam. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam sat down with those Shia and debated and debated and debated with them until he managed to unite the Shia back on one umbrella or under one umbrella. This is why there's a hadith from our eighth Imam alayhi salam where he says, my son al-Jawad will be the greatest blessings to the Shia. Why? Because this young man was able to unite the Shia back under an umbrella, back into the fold of our ninth Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. I want to show you from a couple of verses of the Quran this legacy. And then reiterate that hadith that I told you about. Remember, there were three narrations and I mentioned one of them. What was the one that I mentioned? Don't look at the board. What was the narration that I mentioned? If the ignorant remained silent, people would not be divided. So I want to show you in the Quran how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets this point up. And then you can see this as the legacy of our ninth Imam alayhi salam. Turn, if you will, to Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter number 2, verses 89 to 90. Everybody's there, inshallah? Or do we need another minute? Everybody's there? Okay. These two verses are revealed about the Jews in the city of Medina. The Prophet ﷺ migrates to the city of Medina and immediately encounters the Jews. Now, I'm not saying here Banu Israel as in the past. I'm saying Jews at the time of the Prophet. What these verses tell you is two major things. Number one, that the Jews were expecting a prophet. They had been praying for a prophet. You know why? The Quraysh were bullying them. The Quraysh were killing them. The Jews migrated from Palestine and Egypt to Medina in expectation of a prophet. Because the Quraysh didn't like the presence of the Jewish community, they used to fight them. The Jews used to make dua to Allah. Oh Allah, send our prophet, because then with our prophet we can be victorious. The Jews, when the prophet came, rejected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does anyone know why the Jews rejected the prophet? He was not from them. What does that mean, he was not from them?
He was an Arab.
Ahsant. He was an Arab. They were expecting a prophet from the lineage of Ishaq alayhi salam. The prophet is from the lineage of Ismail. So when an Arab prophet came, they rejected because they didn't want someone from other than them. What did I tell you? Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam was rejected for because he was dark-skinned. His mother was from North Africa, from Sudan. So he was born as a very dark individual. The Arabs and the Shias rejected him because he was an African. Have a read of these two verses with me. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ كِتَابٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ. When they came to them, the Jews, a book, the Quran, from Allah, confirming, verifying that which they already have. What book did they already have with them? The Torah and the
Injil, right? When a book came to them verifying that which they already have, وَكَانُوا مِن قَبْلُ يَسْتَفْتِحُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and from a long time before they used to make dua and pray for victory against the Quraysh, against those who disbelieved. Then when the Prophet came, فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ مَا عَرَفُوا كَفَرُوا بِهِ, they did not recognize their own Prophet and they rejected their own Prophet. فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ, Allah's curse will fall upon those who are the kuffar. Verse 90. Why did they reject the Prophet? بِئْسَ مَا اشْتَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ, evil is that they have sold their souls for. أَن يَكْفُرُوا بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ بَغْيًا أَن يُنَزِّلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ عَلَى مَا يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. They rejected that which Allah revealed out of envy for what they had wanted. They had wanted a prophet from the lineage of Prophet Ishaq. Who came to them was a prophet from Ismail. The Jews, the problem with the Jews was that they rejected what Allah had sent to them. They didn't want what Allah sent them. They wanted what they wanted for themselves. And because of their biases, because of their own criteria that they had established, they rejected the Prophet of Allah, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Turn, if you will, to Surah Al-Furqan, chapter number 25 of the Quran, verse number 4 to verse number 9. Chapter number 25, Surah Al-Furqan, verse number 4 to verse number 9. In these sets of verses, what you will see is the Quraysh, they set up their own sets of criteria as to why they believe there should be a prophet. So previously the Jews did it. Allah identifies that in the verses we saw. Now the Quraysh decide, we are going to set up a criteria for what we think the prophet should and should not be. Let's have a read of these verses together. Verse number 4. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieve, they say, this Quran is nothing but a lie. He has forged it. Other people have helped him with it. Verse number 5. And they say, this Quran, it's nothing but ancient stories. He has got them written down for him. And these are taught to him in the morning and in the evening. And then he comes and tells us these stories. Verse number 7. وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. What is wrong with this messenger? He eats food and he walks around in the markets. The Quraysh used to think that a prophet of God should not eat. You know why? They thought a prophet of God was supposed to be a malaika, an angel. So the fact that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to eat and used to walk in the markets like an ordinary person, purchase things, sell things, said, how can this man be a prophet? They created their own criteria, and with their own criteria they rejected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Verse 8. أَوْ يُلْقَى إِلَيْهِ كَنْزٌ, or why has not a treasure been sent down from the skies to the Prophet? That should be what a prophet is, that he has treasures coming down from the heavens. Last verse, verse number 9. أُنظُرْ كَيْفَ ضَرَبُوا لَكَ الْأَمْثَالِ. Allah says, look at the types of similitude, the likeness that they apply to you, Ya Rasulullah. The criteria that they set up for you, Ya Rasulullah. فَضَلُّوا, but they've gone astray because of it. فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ سَبِيلًا. This is the most important part of the verse. فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ سَبِيلًا. They will not be able to find a way back to the truth. Allah is saying, when we create our own criteria in our minds for what is right and what is wrong about
a prophet or an imam, we will lose the way. The Shia at the time of the 9th imam, they set up a criteria. They said, he's 9 years old, he can't be an imam. They said he's dark skinned, he can't be an imam. We don't know if his father had a son or not, he can't be the imam. And as a result of this, so many people rejected the 9th imam. The 9th imam had the legacy that he had to reunite the Shia back on one path. The important point was that Allah decided who the imam was, not me and you. And similarly to the way the Jews rejected the Prophet by setting up their own criteria, the same way the Quraysh rejected the Prophet by setting up a false criteria, many of the Shia also rejected their imam by setting up their own criteria. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu in this sequence wants to be able to show us that we don't set up the criteria for what an imam is or isn't. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu sets it up, and the 9th imam was an evidence for that. That as a 9-year-old boy, he was able to establish imamat for himself and the proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. This is why the imam says, if the ignorant were to remain silent, people would not be divided. It was because so many people started talking against the imam without knowledge, so many thousands of the Shia became divided at that time, and this was the greatest legacy of our 9th imam, to reunite the Shia of his time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to have ziyarah of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam fi dunya wal akhirah, to be able to learn one hadith of his tonight, and one part of his life tonight for us to be able to take away. And inshallah, through that learning, we can apply it into our own life. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salli ya Rabbi ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin. In honor of our 9th imam, let us conclude this discussion with 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Here, we'll ask everyone one thing that they have learnt, and then inshallah we can wrap up with the ziyarah. Brother Tariq will kindly recite ziyarah for us, inshallah. So I'm going to ask everyone one thing that they've learnt, and that will be inshallah their one takeaway that they want to be able to keep in their mind, and inshallah that's something that we can benefit from the imam tonight. Would you like to write it? Yeah? We can see all the things that we've learnt from across tonight, inshallah. So shall we start again this way? Yeah, is that all right? Do you want to start for us? Yeah? Excellent. I love that you got so much confidence now. Our young... Say again, loudly. You learnt about? His death? Ahsant. What did you learn about his death? Brilliant. He was poisoned by Al-Mu'tasim. Ahsant. Beautiful. And then he died at the age of 25. Ahsant. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
The challenge like he faced at the age of 9, so I learned the whole story.
Learn the challenge that he faced at the age of 9. The story of the challenge of the Imam's life. Thank you. We'll go round. Is that all right? And we'll come back. The third hadith, to be careful of what we say when we don't have full knowledge of a matter, lest it divides people wrongfully.
The people rejected the Imam because he was too dark-skinned.
Ahsant. We learned that people rejected the Imam on the basis of his skin color. He said the one you were going to say? Perfect. Excellent. So that was the... Which one did he say?
So the sister says that she learnt that because the Prophet was an Arab, that the Jews did not give him the respect that he deserved. Ahsant. I'm sorry, you have to speak louder because I can't hear you through the mosque. The Imam had to face many challenges when he was young. Ahsant. Do you want a ticket? So we got a second one. Thank you. Auntie? Ma? One thing? Ahsant. He was one of the? Ahsant, that he was the youngest of all the Imams to die. One thing that you learned tonight. One thing.
His mother was from Sudan.
Ahsant. Perfect. Beautiful. One new thing that we learned, that the Imam's mother was from Sudan.
Similar to what the Sheikh said and the young lad said, it is so sad that racism was right at that time and nothing's changed.
That the Imam was rejected due to his skin color, and sadly we still do racism until today. Ahsant.
About the people, the different tribes he brought together.
Brilliant.
Different factions.
Different factions, yes. The Imam's legacy was that he was such a blessing to the Shia. Why? Because he united the Shia.
Did he never come up? Wasn't he able to speak to the Ismailis?
He did address, but there were still some people that remained on the Ismailiyya khat, on that path. Yeah.
Oh, it's just very knowledgeable. Thank to you, Sheikh. But the thing is that we should all describe the life, legacy, and up to the Quran. So I have more grip on that and more confident that what Allah Ta'ala revealed in the Quran by the Uswa of our Prophet and Imam is nothing out of the Quran and the Sunnah. And even you explain the ninth Imam's life, the racism, and people don't believe on him at that time, even by caste or whatever thing. Our people not really understand the knowledge. They go for their favoritism. Nowadays, like you give the whole picture of Imam, I can easily apply nowadays in the Shia. If you speak with them, that at the time of Nikah of Imam Ali and Bibi Fatma, Imam Ali don't have the money. So they reject this statement. They say, Ali is a line of King Ali talking about silly things. So if you have a knowledge and these old things, and it's whatever they're facing is repeatedly coming nowadays, and you can see the same picture.
I like that. So the brother said that the life of the ninth Imam is not outside of the framework of the Quran. Like his legacy, it's still reflecting what happened to the previous prophets. Ahsant. Very insightful.
Sheikh, you mentioned that some of the Imams are not what you expect, i.e. skin.
Yes.
Today, you went further and told us where Imam Jawad's mother was from. So that's something I learned. And also...
So Imam's mother from Sudan. Another tick.
Knowledge is treasure and silence is night.
Yes, Ahsant, the hadith of the Imam which our young friend read out for us. Brilliant. One thing you learnt. Now, what's the meaning of Al-Jawad? Generous. And what's the meaning of At-Taqi? The pious. Ahsant, what a beautiful thing to learn. Brilliant. What else did you learn?
I learned that he won the debate against the most
Knowledgeable?
knowledgeable
Scholar of the time. Ahsant. Nazir says that the Imam won a debate against the most knowledgeable scholar of the time. That's something new that he learnt.
Two things I think that he was, that he united everyone.
That he united the Shia.
And the second thing that, something that's happening nowadays as well, the Qums.
Yes.
Because of the control of the Qums.
I don't know whether I should repeat that on camera. Quote from Rasul, something that's happening nowadays is that through the control of the Khums, you have a breakaway group. Adnan? It's moving swiftly on. Adnan? the hadith that if the ignorant keep silent, people would not be divided. Ahsant. And once again, our young friend. Okay.
I know that rejecting a prophet is a very big sin.
Yes.
So did the Jews get a punishment for it?
Lovely question. So, a young sister asked, rejecting a prophet is a huge sin. Did the Jews get a punishment for it? So, do you have the Quran verse with you? Did you see the verse? So, the end of the verse, verse 89 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah finishes the verse, فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah's curse falls upon those people who reject the Prophet whilst knowing that he is the Prophet. So the punishment was the la'na of Allah, the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense? So tell it back to me. What was the punishment?
So the people that didn't give the prophet respect, Allah gave them a curse.
Thank you very much, Ahsant. So those are the things that we've learned from tonight's discussion. And you can see again, it's so wide. And part of the learning process is hearing it again. So even though you may have learnt one point, what's very interesting is that you would have had it reaffirmed by everyone else telling you the things that they've learnt. This is mind mapping, where we compartmentalize and then we reaffirm what we learn, so it becomes even more part and parcel of our memory. And the more we think about it and recall it, the more it becomes stronger in our minds. We are going to celebrate the birth of our 9th Imam by cutting this most beautiful cake. So I think in order to prepare ourselves for this, we should give our 9th Imam a thank you for all of his efforts that have guided us with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Can we ask Imam to cut for us? Maybe move it back, move the camera back slightly. Yeah, that's good. For the love of our 7th and 9th Imams, who were both buried under the domes in Kadmain, and we are celebrating them yesterday and tonight. For them, let us have a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.
It would be nice if we had the Najat recital, but unfortunately there isn't anyone.
Inshallah, next time. Will you finish with ziyarah for us? Please.
Ziyarat Imam Jawan?
Please.
Ziyarat Imam Jawan?
That'd be lovely.